think if most people never got another piece of advice on cooking, they would probably be better off.
Welcome to the Good Food Podcast with me, Samuel Goldsmith. Today we're talking about the kind of cooking that happens every day. The meals we make when we're tired, hungry, and just trying to feed ourselves well. My guest is Tamar Adler, whose writing has quietly transformed how so many people think about food. Rather than telling us what to cook, Tamar asks how we live and how cooking can be a way of paying attention, wasting less, and enjoying more. This is a conversation about confidence, restraint, and why a good meal doesn't need to be complicated to be meaningful. Well, Tamar, thank you so much for joining me. I'm very excited to have you here. I'd love to know first what you had for dinner last night.
Oh my God, this is a saga. I was going to Brighton last night.
Okay.
To have a conversation with Jilly Smith, which is
yes.
fantastic. And I had my heart set on fish and chips by the ocean. And I was just picturing a misty night and myself alone, sort of like brooding and eating crispy cod and chips. So all day I was kind of, not starving myself, but depriving myself a little bit.
Sure.
When I got into London just before noon, instead of having a proper meal, I had Marks and Spencer something at the airport.
Okay.
Just enough to tide me over.
Yeah, nice little sandwich kind of thing.
Nutrient dense something.
Okay.
It was like a little, it had, 8,000 plants in it.
Nice. To keep you going till the fish and chips.
Yeah, because I didn't want to have a little experience. I wanted to not have an experience. And then get off the train into misty Brighton and have my fish and chips and walk swoonily around. And then my trains kept on getting messed up to Brighton.
No.
Delayed, and then it just stopped midway. So I ended up getting in to Brighton 10 minutes before my event was starving. So hungry that I actually was trying to not meet. There were apparently people on the train with me who were going to be members of the audience, and I was trying to avoid them because I was so hungry. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And then Jilly said that there was no food ready until after the event.
No.
So guess what I had for dinner?
Like canapes.
Marks and Spencer.
No.
Isn't that horrible? At the train station. But then for my second dinner, I had this really beautiful barley risotto.
Oh, nice.
Which it's a version of something I write about in Feast on Your Life.
Yeah.
It's a very, very green risotto. And so it was made based on it was very redemptive.
And
in
so
every
was
way.
that, did you cook that?
No, that was cooked by, what's it called? Suffolk Surfeit, I think. A wonderful caterer that uses surplus food. Maybe it was Suffolk Surplus to make dishes. And so it was this mixture of like really green leaves and herbs pureed and added to barley risotto. So
Very nice.
it was at like 10, but it was, it redeemed it all.
But still no fish and chips.
No.
Yet.
But see, the time is passing.
How long are you here for?
I'm here until Saturday morning.
Okay. Well, you've got a few days.
I know I have.
I mean, you might not be able to have them by the beach.
No.
And because you live in Madrid, which also isn't by the sea, but is an incredible city.
Yes.
And so how long have you lived there?
Only since August.
Oh, wow.
It's very recent.
Yeah, I love it. I've only been once, but it was incredible.
What did you love?
I just love the vibrancy of the whole... We did a train tour from London down to San Sebastian, then went from San Sebastian to Bilbao to Madrid, and then over to Barcelona and back. But I just thought Madrid was so different to anywhere else. It just felt so full of life.
It's so joyous.
Yeah. And the cocktails were so strong, which was incredible. You only needed one, and then you were happy.
Yeah. The cocktails are strong, but the beers are small, which can be good.
Yes.
Because then you can have more of them.
Yes.
And people are just so smiley.
And what took you to Madrid?
Well, we only have one child, and we really wanted him to live abroad for at least some of his life.
Yeah.
And to speak Spanish. And I don't know if you've been following the news, but the U.S. is a bit of a mess right now. So the timing worked out nicely.
And did you write, so your new book, Feast on Your Life, that presumably wasn't written in Madrid?
No.
Because it's quite a long process, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how would you sum up Feast on Your Life for anyone listening?
So it's a it's a book of, somebody called it a commonplace book, which I think people used to write a sort of daily record of things that they noticed.
Yeah.
And it is that. It's a book of 365 experiences of delight or joy in or near the kitchen, which came from my being really depressed and needing to find delight and joy anywhere. But I think the kitchen is a particularly fertile place to find happiness.
Yeah.
Number one, because we have to be there, and we have to be there so many times a day. You know,
True,
it's sort of like on a purely mathematical level. You might as well look for it there because you got to, you know, you spend so much time at the table or in the kitchen or at a restaurant thinking about food. But then also the fact that there are smells and sounds and things to see and taste. You know, there are so many tactile, sensory experiences available in cooking. Made it also a particularly good place to look for happiness.
And that's also breaking down into month, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it kind of has, some of it will have a seasonality to it.
Yes,
on
it has
when
an
it's
inevitable
happening.
seasonality. But I felt like, you know, kind of defining it by the seasons would seem even more twee than an already potentially twee exercise. You know, it's like me writing about my own observations.
Sure.
In food.
I think what I love about it is that there's so many different, there's such a variety of things, because you might be talking about a person, or it might be about an ingredient, or it might be about a situation, or there was a word, and what was I saying to Liv that now I forget everything? And I was like, earlier I was like, I don't need to write that word down because I will remember it, and I haven't forgotten it. But it was
Okay.
about foraging mushrooms, beginning with P.
Foraging mushrooms,
It-
beginning
the-
with P.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say the German word, which means the food you politely leave on your plate. I learned a word. It was in there was an entry in which that was all about words, and one of them was about fish eaters in Greek, which is a really cool word. I know fagi is eat, but I forget what the beginning was. And then there's Andreckenschrucken or something like that, which is a German word for the food you politely leave on your plate when you're done eating, to kind of like make it clear that you're not, you know, that you're enjoying things, but not trying to be rapacious.
You're not greedy. I feel like what I loved about it, which is interesting, because you were talking about how you wrote it to kind of about all the things that make you less depressed, but I feel like your writing in general kind of makes me feel less anxious, because it's very kind of calming, and I don't know, your voice through it just makes me feel way more chill.
That's great.
Is that something that you kind of set out to achieve, or is it just a sort of natural achievement?
I did not set out to achieve that. So that's neat to hear. You know, that's one of those things where like somebody could tell you something about your personality and you'd be like, I'm
Really?
funny? Or worse, I'm not funny. Which somebody once told me, it was awful. It was an ex-boyfriend, and he said, we were having an argument, and I said, I just don't think it's going to work because you don't laugh at my jokes. And he said, well, has it ever occurred to you that you're not funny? Can
That's
you
men
imagine?
for you, isn't it? Blaming the woman.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. What, did you have a comeback to that, or were you just so...
No, I was mortified. I mean, I would love to be cool enough to have a comeback to that. I spent years in crisis because I had always thought I was funny, and then I learned I wasn't funny.
Only one person told you. I'd have turned around and be like, has anyone ever told you you're a knob? That would have been the thing.
That's what I should have said.
Yeah, just be really childish, you know. How?
Yeah, like you have a unibrow, monobrow. Or, I don't
See,
even
you
know,
are funny.
Something. Which I actually love monobrow, so that wouldn't have been a good one. But no, I didn't set out to make it calming or reassuring, and I actually was worried. You know, I wrote this book that's designed as expressions of joy and delight, but lots of times to get to a moment of joy, I kind of had to write myself out of unhappiness. And so I was actually worried that the book was too depressing.
Because of where you were at.
Yeah.
You
And
kind of
I mean,
fed off
sometimes,
of you.
I thought I would actually edit more of it out because I figured my own depression would be sort of the scaffolding that would, and then once I had expressed delight and joy, I could remove the scaffolding. But I think more of it ended up staying in than I had intended, and I was worried that people would feel deceived.
Yeah, or maybe they'll be happy that they're not as depressed as you.
Yeah, is that how you felt? Like, oh, poor
No,
Tamar.
I didn't feel. Well, I've kind of, it just made me quite calm.
Okay, calm's
Yeah.
good. An anesthetic quality.
Yeah, it might be the meds as well, of course, but I think generally speaking it did. Your other book as well, An Everlasting Meal, and that I've often seen that described as like changing how people cook day to day. So what do you think we get most wrong about cooking day to day?
Oh God. I mean, I think if I'm saying this on the Good Food podcast, but I think if most people never got another piece of advice on cooking, they would probably be better off. Because I think
Sure, I know what
we're
you
like
mean
in a
by that.
fire hose
Yeah.
of do's and don'ts and tricks and tips
Yes.
and
Hacks.
hacks and
Yeah.
you need this pot. This pot is really going to change everything, and the best knife for or whatever. And then if you spiralize your vegetables, then you'll live forever. And then if you eat extra high protein pasta, then your hamstrings will be amazing. It's just too
It's a
much.
lot,
And I think
yeah.
that mostly it's the torrential quality of food commentary and that I don't know if it's that we get wrong, but that kind of wrongs us because it's really hard to sift through to what matters. And you know what matters is the stuff that we would think mattered before being inundated with
Yeah,
advice, like
that's
that it tastes good, that we eat it together if we
Yeah.
want to, or that we eat it alone if we would
Yeah.
prefer to be alone.
Always.
That it, be like even what the meaning of fresh food does not mean food that has been refrigerated, but we treat it as though like fresh. If you even just thought like, it's probably better for me to eat stuff that is like, fresh. That would just mean that it had recently been picked
Yeah.
or and you would want to know sort of where it came from, but then you don't need a huge variety of foods. You don't need to do anything particular or use less salt or less oil or more. It's all just sort of like, I think pretty intuitive.
But what we're getting told is almost the opposite, I guess. It's that kind of, or not told the opposite, but like you say, we're getting so many different people's opinions. And I guess it's social media, I suppose, is kind of to play on there. But even before that, really. Like,
I think it predates our lives also. When I based my first book, An Everlasting Meal, on How to Cook a Wolf by MFK Fisher. And when she wrote that, she was writing against the crazy nutritional recommendations that were having people harried and running around and trying to get 3 balanced meals on the table. I think we have incredible instinctual knowledge about food and nutrition, and it becomes very hard to tune into it when you are trying so hard to follow guidances that are completely outside of your own intuition.
Yeah.
And I think you can sort of lose that compass quite
Absolutely.
easily.
And I feel like so many people are anxious about cooking. And for me, if I'm anxious about something, I will seek out opinions until I don't feel anxious. And
Right.
of course, that's not actually going to happen because there's so much going on inside the body when you're anxious. But I think I feel like what people do is like, well, I still feel anxious about cooking that risotto, so I will find what someone else says. Oh, I still feel anxious. Oh, I'll read a different book. Oh, I'll read a different magazine. I'll read a different website.
Yeah.
I'll go online. And those feelings don't go away just because you hear somebody else tell you something.
Yeah, and if anything, you end up, becoming sort of more and more distracted.
Yeah, you
and
don't
less
cook
and
it
less.
because it just sounds
Right.
too difficult.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier to just not do it, I guess. And then I feel like a lot of people feel pressure as well to cook all the time. Are you one of the, like, do you cook every meal? Obviously not, because you were saying about Marks and Spencer's, which I do actually love a Marks and Spencer's sandwich. But like, how do you define what a good meal is?
Well, ideally, it's not in a little plastic tub from Marks and Spencer, but they were both actually, totally reasonable. I don't cook every meal from scratch. much in the sense that I love using what's left of
Sure.
earlier meals. But I do, my general theory and approach is that I try to make most of our food at home. I feel like if it's something that I have, even if it's eggs and bread, or, we have very simple meals, rice and eggs, rice and greens, things like that, rice and various tofu dishes. If I make it, I just don't worry about any of its nutritional qualities. I sort of feel like we're supposed to make most of our food because it puts inherent limitations on what we can do. And like Michael Pollan years ago wrote that if we just cooked all of our food at home, we could stop worrying about, salt and fat and sugar and all of that. And I thought that was so true because I sometimes make chips, French fries, but they're a pain because I have to deal with all the oil.
Yeah. What
And
do
so-
you do with the oil?
I usually sieve it once
Okay.
and store it, sometimes twice. And then I end up throwing it out when it's sort of browned and used. But there is this sort of inbuilt integral limitation on how much fried food I'm going to make because I have to deal with the oil every time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a useful limitation. I think there are a lot of limitations like that. But if you mostly put your meals together at home, there's not a lot you can do that's wrong.
You also see what's going into it, I guess. Whereas if you order a takeaway or something, I mean, sometimes it definitely helps feed your hunger, but you have no idea what's going in. And sometimes I'm so shocked when I actually find out that I just bury my head in the sand because I don't want to know.
No.
But yeah, I guess that's it. It's you're connecting with it. So you're not going to do anything that's actually really annoying a lot, and then also you'll know exactly what you're putting into your body.
Yeah, I mean, my husband twice recently by mistake bought prepared tomato sauce in a jar versus just chopped tomatoes in a jar. And I hadn't bought that since I was in college. And I read the ingredients and I saw that there was sugar in it, which I thought was so interesting because I've often wondered, like, I don't know, like I don't eat, I think it would be hard to eat as much sugar as they say
Oh, for sure.
not to.
Yeah.
But I think that's because I'm making most of my food, and you just don't add sugar to everything. But
And you're not having like a dairy milk chocolate bar or...
not usually. But I realized looking at that right, if they put sugar in most things that are sort of pre-made a little bit, you've no reason to believe that they would, so you might not even read it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're using, like 2 or 3 of those things together, and you do end up probably having an amount of sugar that's not great.
When I wrote my tin tomatoes cookbook, I was shocked that it wasn't just just tomatoes in the tin. Like some of the good quality ones are, but lots of them have other ingredients in.
That's crazy. I hadn't realized that. So I think, I mean, again, I don't make at all complicated food. Like really, dinners are, almost insultingly simple at our house. Like there's usually, toast is usually one of the,
Okay.
there's
Like
a lot of bread, a lot of rice.
Homemade bread?
No.
No.
But we've got good bakeries.
But you started off as a chef with Alice Waters.
I cooked a few different. Yes, I mean that wasn't my first cooking job, but I was at Chez Panisse with Alice for about 1.5 years.
Which, for anyone who doesn't know, is quite a big deal in the States, isn't it? Well, in the food world, really.
Yeah,
the
I
restaurant
mean,
world.
Alice Waters is, I think, responsible for kind of raising consciousness about where food comes from. I do not think that we in the U.S. certainly thought about where anything came from.
Is
really.
it true she has a silent kitchen?
A silent kitchen?
Yeah, I read somewhere that you can't talk in her kitchen.
No.
I don't know where I read that.
I mean, there's no music. We don't
Oh, maybe it was that.
but
And I took
no,
that
but you
to mean-
talk all the time.
Okay, but no pumping
No,
music to keep you going.
no.
To keep
Just
you
espresso.
excited.
No.
Why do you think that simplicity is so difficult for for chefs? Because I think what you're talking about is very much about like simple meals, simple foods, but actually I feel like often, I do think it's kind of going back to being about simplicity, but you will still go to a restaurant and there'll be like 20 names on one dish, and you're like, what the hell is half this stuff?
Yeah, I don't know what, I mean, I know that people have criticized Alice Waters and Chez Panisse for just serving things as they are. Somebody at some point said, like, she doesn't cook, she shops, meaning that a lot of the cooking at Chez Panisse is just buying a good ingredient and preparing it in the simplest possible way and serving it, which is true. And that's also what Italian food is, almost uniformly, not in the north, and Spanish food. Like I now live in Madrid, and almost everything on every menu is just the thing. You don't get, nothing has been done to peppers when you order them on a restaurant menu. They're just cooked.
Yeah.
It's just a pipara pepper cooked.
But it's the best one you can find.
Tomatoes.
Yeah.
You just get the tomatoes, sometimes with thin onions on them. I don't know if it's hard for chefs. I think you have to have really beautiful produce to do that. And that is incredibly labor intensive to get, to process, to upkeep in the kitchen. And then probably to charge a reasonable amount for.
Wow, yeah.
Because I think Chez Panisse has been running at a loss since it opened, because it takes a lot of people to do all of that, to get food straight from farms and bring it in and clean it properly and rotate it properly. It's a huge quantity of sort of living things.
Is it in California?
Yeah.
And because California is one of the like most veg producing areas in the world?
Yeah.
Also, there's somewhere in California that is one of the blue zones, isn't it? Which is where people live the longest.
Is that in California?
I might be wrong, but I'm sure I saw it on Wikipedia yesterday.
It's shocking to imagine that could be in America.
Wow. To be honest, I was shocked. Yeah. I think there's one in Japan, one in...
Yes. Greece.
Sure one was, Costa Rica.
Yes, that all makes sense.
And then I'm sure one was in the States, in California. We'll Google it later.
I don't know how. We should Google it.
Loma Linda.
Loma Linda. I've never heard of it. We should go.
Yeah. One of the people live the longest. But
there.
then to be fair, now it might not be.
No, now they're stressed out. They're like dying at 90.
Wow. Instead of 110.
Instead of 110, yeah.
And you were saying earlier about, so Feast on Your Life was written from a place where you weren't feeling great mentally. Was that because of the state of America? How some of us look at America?
It certainly was a factor and is a factor. And I think throughout the book, I can't avoid the fact that there are horrific things happening all over the world, even as I'm looking for joy in the kitchen. That certainly is true. Yeah, I think some of it was the state of the U.S. I think some of it was the state of geopolitics in general. I think some of it was a kind of predictable middle-aged malaise, and wondering whether I'd done anything with my life. And also, I had just finished a book. I had a book that came out before Feast on Your Life. That came out the year, or I guess the March before I started writing this book. And I think after you write a book, you just get depressed.
It's kind of a bit of an anticlimax. I think. Yeah. It's kind of, and that was something old, something new. Was that?
No, that was the Everlasting Meal Cookbook, which is a leftovers encyclopedia.
Yes. And that, I guess, that's not the first cookbook you've written, or it's the first soul cookbook.
Yeah, the first soul cookbook.
Because there are recipes in Feast on Your Life, but they're not. If that was a pure.
Yeah.
Which process do you enjoy more, writing or the cookbook?
Writing.
Right. I think cookbooks. I would say this, but I think they're really hard because it's easy in some respects. Like there's no narrative necessarily, but you're pumping out recipe after recipe after recipe, and I guess the way you cook probably isn't necessarily like that because you're cooking what you have around you and what's in your fridge.
And so few processes. I'm so lazy. I've just started writing down the stuff that I cook most often.
Okay.
because, well, the dual purpose. One purpose is that I am thinking maybe if I actually formalize things that I do in recipe form, then my husband can do them also. So that is one of the reasons.
As long as he can make toast, he's all right. From basically
Yeah,
from what
but
you're
like I'm
saying.
thinking that if he followed a chicken recipe,
Yes.
that would also be okay. But I can't just say, throw X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
in with the chicken. So I've started doing it. I've started actually writing down what I do. But then I also am curious whether it ends up turning into a kind of body of recipes that I want to publish as a
Sure.
book. But they're so simple, it's hard to imagine anybody doing them because I am so lazy. So it's, yeah. And half of them start with leftover rice. So that's why my one cookbook is a leftovers cookbook,
Yeah.
which made it a little bit hard to write because you had to start with
Yeah,
a little
so you
bit
might
left
have to
over.
make it.
I made so many things during the writing of that book. I was living in upstate New York, which is where I've lived for 10 years. And I wanted there to be leftover samosas, but that meant learning how to make samosas, leftover mapo tofu. So I had to learn how to make mapo tofu. So I actually, in that year, in the year of testing for that book, I think I became a better cook on a sharper incline than I had probably at any other point, because I made, Korean scallion pancakes and Indian thali, and I just had to make everything that I wanted to include.
What's interesting is that you were making a cookbook about leftovers, but actually you weren't really using leftovers.
Well, I would make them,
Yeah.
and then let them sit,
Yeah.
and then use them.
Right, before we move on to our next section, if there was one thing that people misunderstand about you, what would it be? And she said she always asks that every time she meets someone new.
I want to ask that of everybody now.
Yeah.
Presumably, we're talking about in the realm of the kitchen.
Well, no, it could be anything. We could go deeper. But, if you want to keep it light, we'll stick to food.
Or maybe I can answer it twice. When it comes to food, it is certainly that I know that people imagine that I tie on an apron and tie up my hair and start, breaking down suckling pigs and I'm this Provençal housewife who just spends all of my time in the kitchen creating beautiful meals for my family. I know because people seem to expect it even in conversations that I really labor over and really fuss over food for my family and for my friends, because we have people over, even in Madrid, we always have a full table, and there are never enough seats, and that is all true. But I've already said that I'm lazy, but it goes further than that. I will really serve a pot of beans and bread, and I never spend more than, half an hour putting it all together. I almost it's almost that is the limiting factor in all of my cooking, and I don't actually like spending my whole day in the kitchen. I do the simplest possible thing without, and even when the Leftovers book came out, I was hanging out with a friend, and he was flipping through and saying, well, don't you think this would be better with some, chopped herbs on it? And I was going, yeah, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to make it as good as it could be. I was just trying to make it something that you could, fairly quickly make
Good
with your
enough.
leftover. Good enough.
Yeah.
So that what I focus on is how, I do care very much about the ingredients that we have in our house, and sharing food with people, and having everything feel kind of copious and abundant. But it's an abundance of rice.
Sure.
Yeah. It's not like Richard Olney tying together a calf's heel and a perfect, bouquet garni.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
letting the food speak for itself almost.
and letting me do other things.
Yeah.
I don't actually spend that much time cooking. I love serving people and I love gathering people, but I don't like standing and fussing in the kitchen.
I think you do talk about that quite a lot in your books, the how nice it is to have the people rather. It's not necessarily just the meal.
Yeah.
So that would be the one thing, people misunderstand, is that actually you're not a slave to the stove.
Yeah, and I don't, and that I don't really enjoy. Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be, and I don't. Making elaborate meals is not where I go to be calm. I go for a run if I want to feel calm.
That is the opposite to me.
But yeah, I don't. And maybe at some point in the distant past, I did. But no, I go to the stove to feed people. And
what would be the other mistake? You were saying that might be too.
Oh, I think that, I don't know how this happened, but I think I am often thought of as a very sort of proper person. I don't know why.
It's because you have a smart coat.
It's because of the
like
coat.
I said when you were,
Because my people who know me well and my husband always think it's so funny because I'm so bawdy and I curse so much and I drink so much and I stay out so late.
You were made for Madrid.
I was made for Madrid.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we moved there, I think our second day, I turned to my husband and I said, we need whole new personalities now. Because our personalities in New York were the fun people. Oh. But now everybody's fun.
Maybe you need to become the proper person.
No.
And then I'll
just become something else.
Or just enjoy being who you are in a place where everyone's like you.
Yeah. I just love that nobody would even notice it. I don't
Also,
think
you have good posture. And I think that is, people think people with good posture are proper. Because whenever I watched this back to edit it, I always realised I'm slouching.
I'm slouching too.
No, you're like yoga. Right, we're going to move on to our next session now,
Okay.
which is favourite dish. So I would love to know what your favourite dish of all time would be. And yes, I know that for someone who's been a cook and a chef, that it's really annoying, but you have to answer it anyway.
That's fine. And I do the thing that you just described doing, where sometimes I'm just like riding a bus and I think, you know what? X is just my favorite food. I love it. And I'm so glad to know that about myself. And then I forget what it is. But I think that it is today boiled potatoes, perfectly cooked potatoes with aioli.
Oh, nice.
And then maybe if I could also have artichokes with the aioli,
yeah.
I would take them as well. Those two things and garlic
Very
mayonnaise.
Nice. So like a platter of artichokes, potato, and little
and
aioli
mayonnaise.
dip. Lovely.
Yeah, a lot of aioli dip.
Yeah.
I think that's it. But there is something else also that I think of. But it probably gets, I'm sure it gets aioli on it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. It would.
And are you real garlic fiend?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love garlic.
Yeah, me too.
You
I used to eat
really?
it raw when I was a kid.
What?
Yeah, that's mad,
It's
isn't it?
so good for you.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why I had no friends, because no one wanted to come near
Yeah,
me.
that is why. But it's why you're your own blue zone,
Yeah. Yes.
a walking blue zone.
Well, unfortunately, part of the blue zone is that you have community. And of course, if you're eating lots of raw garlic,
Then-
you have no community.
So now you saute it first.
Yeah, exactly. And I have been trolled online for my use of garlic on goodfood.com.
Really?
Yeah, too much garlic. Oh, someone just likes to comment, "Oh, garlic again." So, yeah, what can I say? I love garlic.
Same.
Where else would you use garlic? What other dishes would you? I think you mentioned roast chicken and your husband. Would you? Use a lot of garlic on a roast
everywhere
chicken?
There's always garlic. Where is there not garlic? I don't know.
And a pavlova, maybe.
Probably not. But you know what? Actually, I
try
bet
it.
a savory pavlova with gravy would be delicious.
I don't.
Ooh.
We were talking about this in the office. But I don't.
Would
think
it
we can
be,
do
or would it be gross?
Well, because how could you do it? How would you? Could you
Would
just
you
egg
whip?
whites and sugar? So would you egg whites and?
Cornstarch and a little bit of sugar.
Okay.
And then you would make it sort of Thai. You would do like I think if you did the Thai sweet, sour, salty, spicy.
Yes.
And so you did the meringue you could do it as sweet and maybe an herb, like lemongrass.
Nice.
This would be good.
Yeah.
And then you could do, what else would you do? I don't know. I'm thinking like shrimp, lemongrass, cilantro,
Maybe some shrimp
chilies.
paste in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah. Whipped shrimp paste.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to do this.
No.
But
Nope.
I'm
I'm not either.
no. but I do kind of want to try it. I would eat it,
if somebody
but
else
I
did.
don't know if I would make it.
I think it's one of those things where like humans have been eating for a long time and we haven't done this.
No, there's
Because
probably
it's a bad
reason.
idea.
Because somebody somewhere will have tried it.
They will have, yes, yes. And
Maybe
then-
not with gravy.
No, that was not that. That
You
also
could do a
wasn't good idea.
toad in the pavlova. You know, like toad in the hole, which is sausage in Yorkshire pudding.
Yeah.
You could do sausage in the pavlova, and then you could put your gravy on.
Will you serve toad in a pavlova sometime?
I will
And
try.
Let me
yeah.
know.
If you invite me to Madrid, I will make you.
Toad in a pavlova.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Right, we're going to move on to culinary confessions. Now, other than your savoury pavlova, what is the one dish that you make better than anyone else?
Okay, here's the thing. Nobody makes beans as good as mine.
Okay, good.
And I know that they sometimes think that they are, but they're not. And
What makes it so magical?
I think I dote over them.
Okay.
And I think part of being super lazy and not cooking, a lot of different things. And I really do, I'm kind of like I make a pot of something and then there's a starch, like rice or bread. But that gives you time to dote over what your one thing is. And because I know how good beans can be, I know that they can be exquisite. They can be like transportive and so luscious that you would never want to eat anything else. That you would think like, if I only ate these beans for the rest of my life, I would be happy. They can be like that. And so I think I insist that they are like that when I make them. And I will not take beans off the stove unless 5 eaten sequentially are perfectly tender. And so I even sometimes get tempted because there's other stuff going on, and I'll taste 4, and then one has like a tiny bit of crunch left to it, and I'll turn it off, and then some bean genie inside of me rises up, and it's like, don't do this. There's also, because there's always a chance that somebody at your table has yet to be converted to beans.
Okay.
So if you ever miss an opportunity to evangelize, you will have missed part of your mission here on Earth.
Sure. And
That's how
a
I
very
feel.
American thing, I think, isn't it, to evangelize?
Is it? I mean, about beans.
You
yeah,
see it on
yeah,
the telly
maybe.
all the time. You know, the channels where there's people
Oh.
evangelizing.
Yeah.
And they're
yeah.
always American.
I guess that's true. Although, you know what? I also live in Spain now, and I'm thinking about the Inquisition, and I'm thinking about the Crusades. On all of that, it was quite evangelical, and none of that was American. So I think, in
And
the
you're
Roman
Spanish now,
Empire,
yeah. Yes,
So
yeah.
I think, in fact, it might not be any more American than it is
Okay. It's just people.
people.
Yeah.
People, man.
Yeah, we'll move on then.
Okay.
What is your biggest cooking disaster?
Oh my God, there are so many. There
That's
are so
good.
many.
Yeah.
They're like endless. Once at, oh my God, there are so many. Once at Chez Panisse, it was pretty early in my tenure there, and I was on the salad station, and I was making a salad of endive and beets and a creamy white dressing. Lovely, like a kind of creme fraiche. I'm trying to remember if there was anything like blue cheese or if it was just creme fraiche and garlic. And because I was pretty new, I was still in the phase of my cooking there where I was cutting myself quite often when I was trying to move quickly. And I remember starting service that day, and I thought I remembered putting a finger cot on, which is like a little condom for your finger that you
Okay.
put when you have a Band-Aid on
Oh, yes.
and you're cooking. You put a finger cot over the Band-Aid so that the Band-Aid doesn't come off in the food,
Sure.
which is obviously
Oh,
to be
no.
avoided. And it was a busy Saturday. Lunches at Chez Panisse are insane. Like the tickets start coming, and before you can take the first one, they've rolled over on themselves. And you just spend 4 hours in the weeds. You just spend 4 hours going like it. Yeah, it just happens in the blink of an eye. You never catch up. You just go.
Yeah.
And it's the most popular service, and obviously everybody gets salads because it's Chez Panisse, So it is the hardest station, which is why people start on it, because once you can do that, you can do anything else.
Okay.
And at some point during this Saturday lunch, I noticed that I didn't have a finger cut on my finger. And I thought, oh, I must have just not put one on, which like that was self-deception, but it was necessary for survival. So I deceived myself into thinking it was not a problem. I must not have just not put it on. I proceeded with the service, and actually, as it was winding down, I got called over by the manager and invited to the back deck, where he showed me a plate containing a single piece of endive and a finger cut filled with white creamy dressing.
Oh no!
And I fell over laughing. I don't even know if I apologized. I mean, I think later I did, but it was the most incredible thing to see. They had to comp the whole meal. Can you imagine those poor people?
That's why they've never made a profit.
No, exactly. People like me. I mean, there are other ones, but that one was pretty incredible.
It's the horror of finding it on your plate, I guess.
Imagine?
Especially because it's something that's shaped like a condom filled with white liquid.
Yeah. Like a little condom.
Yeah.
Everything about it is so disturbing.
What are they doing back there?
Yeah, right? Like anything you imagine is just worse than, yeah. It was awful.
That does sound disgusting. If you could change one thing about the way we grow, buy, cook, or eat food in this country or in Spain that would be better for the planet, what would it be?
You know, I think the whole single serving thing is a really bad idea. I think like I think the idea of even selling things in terms of servings is probably a bad idea. I think that people really need the amount of agency that it requires to decide how much of something they're going to make or serve. And all of the little tiny bags of, I mean, I don't know if they have them here, but like in the US, you can get like 100-calorie bags of almonds, and each one has like 20 almonds or 10.
So it's calorie as opposed to,
it's just so sad. It's really, really sad. So I think no more single serving.
No, that sounds like a good idea. If you were opening a themed restaurant based on your life, what would it be called and what would the signature dish be?
Oh, okay, great. We already have this. My husband and I have an entire imaginary restaurant row.
Right.
And they're all restaurants that we are not going to open. But my favorite is called Dregs. And it's where what you get is the stuff that's left on the plate, like you know, in Italy you fare la scarpetta, which is like you take the heel of bread and you soak up all of the stuff. And so Dregs is next to the main restaurant. And then at Dregs, what you get is like all the soupy sauce left at the bottom of the pan drippings.
Okay.
And you just get that and bread. And it costs almost nothing.
Not the plate bits that are left on people's plates.
It's from the pot, right? Or if it's all imaginary, then sure. But like basically the stuff that when you're done, like, you know, at the end of the night, you've just served a meal and you haven't cleaned up while you were cooking, because I don't know what kind of magical person does that. I don't do that. I make a huge mess. And then you're like, oh, God, that's probably better. That's the best part right there.
Especially with bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you stand there in the kitchen and you kind of soak it up and then you put the very end in a little jar. And the next day, somebody's like, what's in that jar? And you're like, I don't know.
Dregs.
So that would be Dregs. And then you get like, wine on tap, bread, and Dregs.
Love it.
So good.
And you wouldn't know what the signature dish really would be because you wouldn't know what was in it.
Impossible to say.
Could be any dregs. Is there a food you always eat on your birthday?
No. I always drink, though, when I can. This is going to sound so... If I can, I really like drinking Domaine Tempier Bandol Rosé, which is... wasn't like a... My mom started buying it for me every year when they release it, and so I would save a bottle and drink it.
Oh no! And is it like £200 a bottle kind of wine, or is it?
No, it's like 45 to 60. It's like
It's birthday.
It's birthday wine.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And finally, for the confessions, do you have a food guilty pleasure?
You know, I object to this category.
We do say there's no shame.
But that's impossible. Then it wouldn't be guilt. So I object to the category because I think it's important to not feel guilty about anything. Yeah, but I just don't think pleasure and guilt really make sense together, right? Like For me, if I'm feeling guilty, I am not feeling pleasure. If I'm feeling pleasure, I'm not feeling guilty. What
about a one-night stand?
But I'm married. But you know what kind of does, the only place that this actually would, where I can't avoid the overlap, I think, is like those days that I can't really have anymore, but where you just kind of drink pints all day.
Okay.
You just are, and so you feel like you're never drunk exactly, except you're probably drunk from the very beginning. But it doesn't, because it's just beer, it doesn't really
feel it.
You don't feel it, and you just, you start at whatever, noon or 11, and then you just have this glorious day, and you wonder if the world was always that good.
And
People were always that kind. And then sometime around 2 a.m., you give everyone a hug, and then the next week you kind of hate yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So that's the only one I have.
And
with food,
even with that, I
have
would
one.
say there's no shame. Because
I
you've had
feel
a good time.
shame.
I think guilty pleasure is more a term than a...
I know.
If you know, it's hard, but I do know what you mean.
I just don't. People so often, even in Spain, we eat a ton of potato chips, and my husband and my main takeaway so far, our big nutritional observation, is just based on how hot everyone is in Spain, and the fact that we haven't had a heart attack since moving there. We probably should just stop demonizing potato chips. That, I think in general, the stress around food probably is worse for us than the food.
Yeah, it's true.
So I just don't want people to feel guilty. I think that's probably the problem.
No, that's fair. Well, we'll move on to funner, is that a word? No, more fun.
More fun.
Round, which is quick fire questions.
Oh.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Best kitchen tip you've ever been given?
To julienne things by putting them in a long line and then just cutting down the line.
If you could only eat one cuisine for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Thai.
What ingredient is the biggest waste of money?
Salad dressing.
Worst thing you've ever eaten?
Meat glue.
Your signature can't be bothered meal?
Tinned fish, rye crackers, avocado, and chili crisp.
Favorite midnight snack?
I don't eat at midnight.
What food should have its own national holiday?
Potatoes.
What's your go-to hangover food?
Ramen.
What food did you hate as a kid but now love?
Broccoli rabe.
If you could invent a new crisp flavour, what would it be?
I like plain potato chips.
Name a fictional character you'd love to have dinner with.
The Hobbits.
Final question, starter, main or dessert?
Starting.
Oh, that's good.
Really?
Yeah, 1 minute, 2 seconds.
The salad dressing one was rough.
Meat glue.
Meat glue.
What's that?
I think people have stopped using it, thank God. But there was a moment, I think it was the mid-2000s, where people, because of Heston Blumenthal and Ferran Adrià, people had started literally gluing together their proteins to get them into whatever shape they wanted. And that there was a illusion that you couldn't taste it, but you really could. I'm made of I'm sure some meat protein thing, but you could totally taste it. And you always knew when there was
That's disgusting.
meat glue in there.
Our final question for today, which is the term and not the brand, which is, what does good food mean to you?
I was going to say transports you, but in fact, it's not really to somewhere else. Maybe food that makes you feel really alive. I think good food is food that kind of makes you feel, or maybe just happy that you have senses.
Nice. That's nice. Yeah, I like that one. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. I say thank you for coming all the way from Madrid, even though you're doing some other things, but just so we feel special.
I feel terribly guilty about having said I don't like your question. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, you're not the first person.
Really?
And I'm not taking it off. I'm just going to annoy people.
Yeah.
Because I'm stubborn.
Well, other than that one, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Good Food Podcast. For more recipes and inspiration, visit goodfood.com or download our app. Subscribers to the Good Food app via the App Store can listen to our podcast ad-free.